Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Cosmic Mistress podcast. I'm Amanda, and today we have David Lieberman, who is a couples therapist, and he's also a really good friend that I've gotten to know the past year or so. So, David, I would love for you to share a little bit around what it is the work that you do with couples, as well as how you got into the work, what brought you into it.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's nice to see you.
You too.
I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in Louisville, just outside Boulder. And I work mostly with couples and some families. And the work I do with couples is different than other therapists because I go for what's called second order or transformational change. So not about feeling better, but about doing things really differently as individuals in a relationship, whether relationships two or more people. And how I got into it is my now co-parents and I were in therapy back however many years ago here in Boulder. And it just occurred to me that the therapist we were talking to didn't really grasp my experience, the complexity of who I am. And I felt like it was very directive.
Yeah.
Like if you could just do X, Y, Z, you two could have a ABC relationship. And that didn't work for us because our season had, passed as a romantic relationship. And B, it just didn't give me space to be authentic and the unique person I am.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So how is that transformational piece, the second order change, how is that different than traditional or typical therapy in the way other people may work with couples? And how does that allow space for more authenticity with couples?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that change can happen through 5 ways: behavior, psychoeducation, insight, language, and experience. And most therapy is what we would call first order change. It's to feel better or to have more or less of something. So we could just communicate better if every day after work we spend 20 minutes talking. Yes, that would certainly be true, and that would be first order change. The work I do lives in language and experience, and the best metaphor I have for it is learning to ride a bike emotionally. I can't tell you behaviorally how to ride a bike, but I can hold the bike steady as you learn to balance and feel the experience of gliding and riding a bike. And once you ride a bike, you can't unsee it. And so from a relationship therapy context with second order change, metaphorically, again, if you and I each have training wheels and one of us learns to ride a bike, well, the other and the relationship has a big choice to make. We either need to take off the training wheels and ride, or we're going to have a more distant relationship because I'll be riding at Batasso and you'll be, back at a parking lot with training wheels on. So that's kind of the balance with true second order change therapy is finding an ethical way to bring everyone along. So no one gets gratuitously ditched, if you will.
Yeah. I would imagine too, you mentioned something around like emotions and the emotionality piece. Are you finding that is a big piece of what you're creating space for, at least at the very beginning with working with couples?
I don't know if it's the very beginning. I mean, maybe the beginning would be like alliance.
Yeah.
If I ask, especially like a dude to be emotional at the very beginning, they're going to think I have 2 heads.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the work is connecting. Virginia Satir, the grandmother of family therapy, would say, when what I think and feel and experience sensually are all in integrity, then we're off to the races and we've found second order change. That last part I imputed onto her thoughts.
I love that though, because that's speaking to the piece around how important the somatic experience is of relationship. And what you're speaking to as well with like the first order change, you know, what you mentioned, like we can spend more time together communicating, but what is it that we're communicating about, and what is it that we're feeling, and what is it that we're moving towards? It's not necessarily the actual act or the behavior of just communicating more. There needs to be a layer of breaking into also like what is real.
Yeah.
And I think
that.
like that's what you're speaking to with the second order change, is allowing couples to come together with the alliance of, okay, but what is actually real and true for me? And how can we connect here and move forward?
Yes.
Yeah.
You just said it really well, because in the last part, what you said, you hit on that there's three clients. There's partner A, partner B, and the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And each of those clients, I'm using air quotes, needs to find integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Too often, relationship therapy focuses just on the relationship, maybe at the peril of the people in it. Like if you can just be quiet or do the thing, then maybe the relationship will be okay.
Yeah, I think that induces so much guilt and shame too, for maybe not being able to show up a certain way, or just actually going through and actually doing the behavior. And, you know, with the example of actually sitting down and communicating more, but then it not working. Like, why is it not working?
Yeah.
You know? So do you have couples that have gone through like the behavior process, and like then they come to you and they're like, this hasn't worked, let's try this?
It's great job security for me.
Yeah.
Like if I had a nickel for every couple that understandably really wants tips and tricks or a toolkit, I would, be a billionaire.
Yeah.
And I promise everyone, if I had tips or tricks, I would give it to them, but I don't. And the other problem with behavioral suggestions is if they don't work, and you're hitting on this with the shame part, now where am I?
Mm-hmm.
If my therapist tells me, David, if you just, massage your partner's shoulders every night and listen to her speak, you'll have a better relationship. But if that doesn't come about, then now, oh gosh, there really is something about me that can't be in relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it turns it into, but what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
There must be something wrong with me if I'm doing the thing and it's not working. What are some of the overarching themes or reasons couples come to you? Like what is the air quote problem that they are believing is the problem, even if maybe that's not the actual problem?
Yeah. I think I'm hearing like two questions, maybe like what I'd call presenting concern.
Yes.
Oftentimes I see couples, maybe betrayal is visiting the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they want to explore non-monogamy in a consensual way. Maybe there's a discrepancy in how they want to have sex or how often they want to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
So those would be presenting concerns oftentimes. Maybe it gets characterized as communication.
Yeah.
That'd be the overarching one. But then I think under the surface, what we might find with a lot of those would be disordered alcohol use. It would be a big one, because that would disconnect us from our experience in our relationships. Shame that you mentioned, and then shoulds that we got likely long before the relationship. Like I should be a monogamous professional engineer working 9 to 5 who, whatever. Mm-hmm. And if I have these shoulds that I brought from childhood, and you have your shoulds that you brought from childhood, where's the space for us to co-create an authentic relationship that works for both of us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds very deep, especially if couples haven't moved through any of that work before. I know for myself and people that I've worked with, like everything from childhood goes with you until you look at it and move through it. Mm. And then once you do, you get to decide on your own who you are and how you want to show up in relationship and the kind of relationship that you want. Mm-hmm. I'm curious around betrayal specifically, because I think that happens quite frequently in our culture. Like, mm-hmm. The divorce rate is really high. I think betrayal happens. And I would love to give people hope around this topic because I do think that there's space for people to come back from betrayal. And also, it's not just, there's reasons people get to the point of betrayal.
Yes.
And it's not just the act of betrayal that's the issue.
That's it. Yeah. I have a really high success rate with betrayal. Like way over 80% with my humans. And I think it's a 2 or 3 step process. First, of course, there needs to be responsibility for the person that acted sideways in the relationship. But also a co-exploration of how the relationship got to be one that would have space for betrayal or have the opportunity even for betrayal, and letting each partner feel fully heard in all of their suffering, to kind of tease out what happened before.
Yeah.
One of my favorite questions would be for the betrayer, if you knew your partner could fully hear you one moment before you stepped out of the relationship, what were you trying to tell them?
Ooh.
And right there might be the thing. And then metaphorically, to me, betrayal is often a flare, like the ultimate cry for help.
Yeah.
Not feeling heard. And so if we have a personal responsibility and then maybe a shared understanding of how we got there, maybe the last step would be self-esteem. How can I take responsibility, accept myself for who I am, assertively ask for what I need in this life with you and, without you, with the space between us. And if we both find that integrity, then the relationship likely will come back together stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I believe if you can come back from that, the relationship would be incredibly strong. I would imagine too, there's a certain level of safety that's not present within the communication space as far as leading up to the betrayal. It just feels like there's probably, there's this exercise in the book Unbound, a guide to women's power that Keisha Urbaniak wrote. And one of the exercises she has you do, it's called Things Left Unsaid. And you write all of the things where there wasn't space, you didn't feel safe enough, or there wasn't space for it to be heard in whatever type of relationship. So I'm curious too, how do you build and how do you support couples in creating more of that safety, or even like from your own experience? I know for me, it's been a very long journey of coming into feeling safe speaking my truth, because there's no certainty in how it will be received or what response we will get.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of having like self-integrity. Like if I'm so confident that how I am is in alignment with my passions and my understanding of ethics, then even if you say no, thank you, like lovingly, that would be more about you. I can
Totally.
still be okay. And then also clinically, just working in metaphors. I really depersonalize these charged conversations we have.
Yeah.
I have a lot of clients that it's almost like a secondary presenting concern around pornography use by one of the people in the relationship. And we always couch it as, this isn't as much of a metaphor, but knitting. So when you're knitting, what's happening for you? And what's it like for you to find out that they were knitting before a date night, say? It kind of just takes some of the energy out of it, and we don't have to be so blamey and accusing and need to make an airtight case. We can just be humans. And also with a metaphor, we can then together thicken it. If it's just what actually happened, there's no space for creativity or possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very black and white.
Yeah.
I love that. Is there anything else as far as working with metaphors and how you found that supportive with your clients that you'd like to share?
I mean, all sorts of metaphors. I last year got a runner-up for most innovative clinician in Colorado and Wyoming, and it's because we're just not always talking.
Yeah.
So we're, I'll have a couple model themselves over time? Like, could you each show me how you felt as a sculpture the moment you met? And then how did you feel as a sculpture the day your kiddo was born? And how did you feel the moment before we met for working together? And how do you want to feel in 5 years?
Yeah.
It's that experiential component, and then they can mold themselves in each other.
I love that too. Even as you're saying that, like I'm reflecting on some of those things for myself, and that's I've never thought of those things. That I feel like that would be very powerful even to go through on your own, of like the experiential process of the energy that you've been moving through and where you are now and who you want to become.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine that's really powerful.
I think it is. I think there's also just power in being witnessed by people who love you.
Totally.
And so that's why I do some individual therapy that's almost exclusively around suicide prevention.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're talking about something relational, I want more people in the room.
Yeah.
So I can feel, my humans can feel witnessed in how they are and how they aspire to be. Such a difference between like just doing it in a vacuum versus, having your loved ones see you express yourself how you might actually want to be.
Yeah, I would imagine it closes the gap between thinking about who you are and want to be versus actually living as that, because you're able to experience in your body. Other people are able to experience you as that.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like that would be like the merging of what that energy is would probably happen so much faster than just thinking through it.
I think that's the magic.
Yeah.
So when I combine language and experience, if I hear a unique outcome or you emerging with a thicker story, and then I'll lead you maybe through an experiential activity. So maybe I'll say, well, how are you feeling below the chin? And something will be tingling, and invite to direct your partner's hand onto the tingle. So you can both share that moment together. So now we have thicker language of, oh, wow, I do feel so scared when I tell you how I actually want to make love, and I feel it in my body. And now we're sharing this moment, and I don't feel you pulling away. I feel you right there with me. What would that be like if we did that again another time?
Yeah.
So that really helps calcify those moments that might lead to second order change.
Yeah. And softening the fear of the potential of the other person pulling away, and then having the experience where they don't.
Yeah, which I guess would make the clinician effective to read the affect and hopefully orchestrate authentic experiences that both people can really be conscious of, rather than performative.
Mm-hmm. That's so great. I would love to go into a little bit. You mentioned supporting couples moving into non-monogamy. Is a lot of that working with couples that have not dabbled or experienced non-monogamy before, and now they're wanting to transition into having more of a consensual non-monogamous marriage or relationship? Or do you also work with couples that have experience with consensual non-monogamy and then run into issues? It's probably both, but I'm curious around the experience of working with those types of clients.
Yeah, I think all of the above.
Yeah.
Like once we decide as humans that we're not going to be monogamous, it's almost this technicolor possibility of, okay, well, what are we going to be?
Mm-hmm.
I conceptualize non-monogamy as, being open to new sexual experiences outside the relationship and open to being in love with others.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people in the non-monogamous community that are open to loving others, but they may identify as asexual or on the asexual spectrum. So it's not as much about intimacy as heartfelt intimacy. So over 40% of humans' top fantasy has something to do with non-monogamy. So, I could have a couple present for therapy that understands they're in a monogamous relationship. But once we start talking about different things, it's not at all unusual for one of them to say, oh, I've been thank you, David, for asking that. I've been meaning to ask that or think about it with my partner.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can connect, authentically with who they are and what the relationship is. And is this something they want to fantasize about without consequence? Is something they want to dip their toes into? Is it something that one of them has experienced before? Oftentimes, betrayal leads to those conversations. I'm not saying that's a good way to have the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
but that's another path that people can find themselves into some sort of non-monogamy.
Mm-hmm. What do you attribute the resistance to owning that as part of the way that you want to do relationship as far as consensual non-monogamy, maybe going into monogamy and only having that be the way that you do relationship for so long, even though there's a part of you that really knows you have this desire and this curiosity? What do you feel like are some of the reasons people get stuck with the fear of moving into that?
My hunch would be it's a lot of inculturated shoulds that we're supposed to be, het normative, cis normative, blah, 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 barf, barf, barf. And if we think of like cultural cues we get, it would make sense that grandparents want their grandchildren to grow up in a safe, ostensibly wholesome way. And if the parents are leaning into their desires as humans, there could be this cultural misunderstanding that could have bad consequences for their kiddos.
Mm-hmm.
I think you and I know, because we're connected enough to our experiences, that isn't necessarily, of course, the case.
Right. But the possibility of not belonging is very big, like instinctual fear for a lot of us. Mm-hmm. So I think, too, there's that piece of, if this is really who I am, what does that mean for who I've been and the people that know me this way?
Or do they know me?
Or do they even know me? Yeah. And that's the interesting piece too. I was talking about this on a podcast, I think a few weeks ago, of we get caught in the belief that if we actually own our desires and who we are in an authentic way, we won't belong. But you're never really belonging anyway until you own all of who you are. So it's this really interesting thing where when you have, and it takes so much courage, right? It's not easy to own all of who you are and move towards your desires, because you do end up, leaving some relationships behind potentially. You do end up shifting your identity. People do see you differently. Mm-hmm. And that takes a lot of courage.
That would speak to like a double bind that R.D. Laing wrote about in his book called Knots, where if I want authenticity in order to belong, if I am authentic, I may not belong. Mm-hmm. So I have to choose. Am I going to be authentic at risk of not belonging, or am I going to be inauthentic to belong in a thin way? Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of the work we do.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can't, of course, answer that for you.
Right.
But maybe what are other examples of life where the people you fear of coming out to, say your parents, surprised you on the upside?
Right.
What was that like for you when you told your dad that, you kissed a boy and he thought you were heterosexual? Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember him taking me out for a cup of hot chocolate. Oh, well, what did that feel like? Oh, it felt so loving. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be my place to lead someone to that, but to connect them with their experience that they've had before, both positive or negative with air quotes, mm-hmm. might help ground them where they are right now and alleviate some of the fear.
Totally. And I think personally too, I know the deep pain of, there's a quote, I forget who it is, but it's like, it talks about there's no stronger despair than the one that you experience inside the loneliness of not being yourself.
That's powerful.
And that to me is the most painful not belonging that you can have. And so for me, being authentic and showing up authentically, even if no one else is going to be there with me, that's the closest I can get to belonging.
Because you'll be there with you.
Because I'll be there with myself and it'll be true and real. And I don't think we get to have that if we're managing who we are for the way that other people are going to experience us.
Yeah. I mean, I think this loops around to like the problem of feeling better or striving to be happy.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I know we live in a culture that like really wants to bypass pain and wants to bypass conflict and wants to bypass things that feel hard or wrong or bad. And I think it's interesting because when you start to have those experiences of moving through them, it starts to feel easier. I wouldn't say it's necessarily easy, but it's a lot easier than choosing to not move through them and choosing to feel good or to be better.
Yeah. Or what if you're in a relationship where rather than constantly being asked, are you okay? You're asked, how are you?
Yeah.
To make space for however you are. Sometimes I'll have clients write down feelings on note cards, and we'll start by the window where the light is and go towards a door. And could they make a spectrum for me of their favorite to least favorite feelings? And for me, if I were to do that myself, sadness would be pretty close to the window because I like feeling sad. It feels very connected to who I am.
Yeah.
But if I'm so scared of, feeling scared or sad, then I might avoid situations that would require those feelings.
I love that. And I think that that's so interesting because I think that I also enjoy the experience of sadness. And I think it's because I have repatterned myself to also have that experience of, I do find a little bit of pleasure in sadness, the experience of heartbreak or even, things that really break my heart that make me really sad. I also feel like I become so open that I'm so alive within that experience too. And I think that there's not, I would love for more people to own that as well with the different range of emotions.
Yeah. And as a family therapist at heart, even when I'm seeing couples, I'm really a family therapist. I think the best thing we can do for our kiddos is to let them and model for them feeling all of our feelings. It's just such a beautiful experience. If they can be connected to their feelings, then
how do you model that or hold space for even your kids or clients to be able to show up in a way to hold that space?
Well, it would be different for me as outside the room than inside the room, although I'm shockingly similar person in both places. I think one of the best gifts I ever gave my kiddos is after when I was going through a divorce. I remember one day I cried in front of my kiddos and I didn't apologize for it. I just told them that I'm really sad.
Yeah.
And they didn't try to stop it and I didn't try to stop it. And I think that's been a foundation for our relationship since. In the room, I'll just really invite people to know that their loved one is okay, however they are. I will intervene if I think it's necessary, and it basically never is. And I think there's value in being right with your loved one when they're feeling fill in the blank, and not having to react, not having to soothe, not having to do anything, but be two perfectly imperfect humans in that beautiful moment.
Yeah, it's the presence.
Yes.
Like how can we, and I think a lot of that too is getting more comfortable and safe within our own experience, I think creates so much space to be able to show up for our partner or our children or whoever it is. And I love what you shared around just being so authentic with the emotion of sadness with your children around. Like that gives them so much permission to show up in that way when that's present for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think growing up with, the boomer generation and less emotionality, at least less safety and space for that to be okay, has created a space where a lot of us are needing to go back into that and reorient to what is it I'm actually feeling and how can I be with this?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I let that be okay no matter what it is? And then when we do that, it seems to feel a lot easier to show up for other people.
Yeah. And something you're saying is reminding me, I think, of gender scripting. I mean, if I am taught that I can be rewarded for being, say, financially successful or physically strong, but our relationship wants me to be vulnerable, then I need to connect with that.
Yeah.
I need to trust the relationship, that putting aside that prowess in air quotes for a moment and leaning into vulnerability will create possibility for something new.
Would you say that there needs to be possibility for some type of reward for it to be effective?
I don't know that I would characterize it like that, because what visits me, I was thinking as a man that would put responsibility on my female identified partner to reward me for doing something that is going to benefit me more than her.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
So I think the reward is in the experience of feeling the thing without consequence. If I'm a little kiddo and I fall off my bike and I'm told, air quotes again, like, stop crying like a little girl and get up and...
You're okay.
Yeah. Well, there's no... and then what does that teach me when I'm later in a relationship that doesn't want me to always be okay, wants me to be me? And so I think the reward, if I can connect with myself first, you connect with yourself first, the relationship's going to do what it's going to do, usually move towards the light.
I love that. And that's, the piece you shared with the little girl falling off the bike. There's patterns like that we just continue to hold throughout our life that kind of stifle who it is that we are. And then that's the same as us showing up in relationship. Sounds like a lot of the work too is really unwinding some of these patterns that have hardened our emotionality and the ways that we experience ourselves.
Yeah, I think of it a lot, and I hope this builds on what you just said, Amanda, on outsourcing. So if I'm not willing to be vulnerable, but I drink alcohol, I'm kind of outsourcing my lack of vulnerability to alcohol. Or if I'm making you do some sort of emotional labor for me, codependence maybe, or something like that, then what do I lose by letting you do the hard work for me?
Yeah. I would love to go into a little bit about codependency, because I also think that it's a very prominent way of doing relationship in our culture. So what is the definition of codependent relationship? I would love to start there.
Okay.
Just so people...
it would require, as a narrative therapist who's a social constructionist, I'd be hard pressed to give a definition, but
what would that potentially look like?
It seems like something about my well-being is predicated on your well-being, or you telling me that I am well.
Yeah. Does that show up often with your clients?
It must. I don't know if it's something I focus on, because I think it would require like direction or a diagnosis or some sort of get us into a first order component. But or of course, well, I'll tell you an interesting way it shows up. Just the way I work, I really battle codependence with the clinician. You hear so many people say, "Oh, I need my therapist," or we are going to therapy, and they have the same appointment every week at the same time.
Yeah.
So if I know that my partner and I are going to see a therapist Tuesday at 5, well, maybe Tuesday morning at 8, we let it rip, clean up in aisle 4.
Yeah.
And so I don't want that. So my clients have different appointment times every week. and I try to fire them as quick as possible. People only
I
see
love
me.
that. That is not very common, and I love that.
Thank you. It's a really bad business plan for me. It requires a lot of marketing, as you know.
Yeah.
But it really helps solidify second order change and battles codependence.
Yeah.
And it's so important to me that my humans, metaphorically, if they make a carved turn with their skis, it's like, okay, how'd that feel? All right, I'm going to go enjoy your skiing and keep doing carved turns.
Yeah. Do you work up towards seeing people, you said different times throughout the week, but do you work up towards seeing them less frequently when you're getting towards what could potentially be the end of working with you?
Yeah, I think, I like to see people pretty frequently to begin with, because I don't want anything lingering, between sessions. So maybe once a week, say. And then what happens often is two things about second order change. First, we never know when it's going to come about. Second, it always catches us by surprise. The only precursor, it's super fun. And the only precursor I've learned to notice is that there is notable increased agitation right before it happens.
That makes sense.
Second order change comes with risk. If I'm going to learn to ride the bike and I don't know if you or the relationship are, well, then I'm going to be in a real pickle. I'm either going to be riding alone, or I have to put my training wheels back on to be in the most okayest relationship with you. Yeah. So we're going to be really agitated right before it happens. And that's the time that I really invite people to stick with it. If not for the second order change in the relationship, for the fact that whatever's happening now is going to happen later with y'all or with your new relationship. Right. So we might as well sit here and talk about it together.
I love that too, because I think what you're speaking to happens a lot of times right before we have a big breakthrough, or when we're learning something new. I even think about my kids, like with learning something new, and they're like, get so frustrated and they're just like, oh, I want to quit. And then it's like, all of a sudden it clicks. Or, like I've had experience where I go through like a big identity shift or a big, awakening or whatever. And you go into this like almost liminal space where everything feels a little bit more confusing and almost more hard. And you're like second guessing like why you did all this work. And then all of a sudden you land on the other side. So I think it's really important to highlight that just because things feel harder or you're becoming more agitated or it's bringing more up than it did before, it doesn't mean that it's not working.
It means that we're talking about the thing.
Yeah.
So we have a transformational goal that's going to be different than your presenting concern. You might present like, oh, we're not communicating. Well, first, you are communicating really well because 90% communication is unspoken. I see a lot of good communication happening. But maybe the goal is, well, if we both learn to trust and the relationship learn to trust, then we could have the relationship we want. But we have to talk about the pros and cons of trusting one another, really trusting one another, not just in our relationship, in our work, with our kiddos, with our parents, with our community. And there's big risks, for example, to actually trusting. Once I decide I'm going to trust, though, I can't go back to not trusting. Right. And that's the dilemma of change. That's the inflection point where it can get really intense, and then people will, choose to change or not.
Yeah. What are some of the signs you see at that inflection point? Like some of the either like agitation or, the things that come up at that peak right before they're getting to the change.
Yeah, I guess I should knock on wood. People are usually pretty regulated in my office. I think I have a lot of privilege just being a white man.
Who is very safe and regulated himself.
Thank you. Yeah. So there's something about my office where I'm not seeing a lot of agitation. But after the first couple of sessions, people come back and say they're feeling better, which, of course, I want people to feel better. And it makes sense that as we're talking about who we are and where we're from, we'll feel better. But then what happens once we start talking about goals is they'll come and be like, oh, we've had a really shitty week. Yeah. Things are really hard, XYZ. We're talking about all this stuff. And that's what I notice is that report And one reason I don't talk about the weather in the office is because I kind of want to hear that as soon as possible in our 75-minute session, so we can lean into it and see if we can find a new outcome.
So it sounds like almost too, people are meeting when they're at that inflection point, they're meeting all of the resistance that has kept them from not experiencing the transformation.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I'll notice parallel processes in the room.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful to notice. And I always recommend people, if something's coming up for you with your clinician, say it. Hey, last week when you said this, it didn't resonate with me and I didn't appreciate it. Thank you for telling me, let me reattune. And there's that parallel process that's both modeling for you and your partner what it would be like to have a hard conversation. So that would be another way maybe that we could find change.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you also you do couples immersions. Yeah. So what are those like, and who are those for?
Yeah, so I call them intensives.
Intensives.
Yeah, immersion is a beautiful word for it too. It's for almost any couple that's really committed to change. And it's designed to reduce suffering. So I've learned over my clinical experience that on average, I see couples for 15 to 18 hours on average. And so I designed it as 18 hours. We meet a little bit to get a lay of the land. And then we do a couple weekends of about 15 clinical hours, which is exhausting for my humans.
Yeah.
I have lots of tea for them. We take breaks. And then a few weeks later, we meet for another hour and a half just to consolidate what happened. It works really well for certain presenting concerns like betrayal. We're in a lot of pain. This happened. We're not sure what to do next. Come on in. And over the next 30 days, we'll figure it out. It doesn't work for people that are grappling with addiction or a big trauma that they haven't gotten to process, if you will, or access. I want to go slower in those instances.
Yeah.
And so we'll do more typical therapy. And then when I think there might be an opportunity for second order change, if we just kind of jump for it, I might introduce the idea of intensive.
Cool. What, do you have a lot of people that are potentially thinking of divorce and they are wanting to figure out whether they're both all in or whether they're going to come out of it deciding on divorce?
Yeah. I mean, yes, a lot of people feel that much pain. I think the way I approach it is first, success to me clinically is when two humans leave the room as whole humans and fully connected to their experience. And if we can just give a cup of tea to this pressure to stay married and do the thing, then we can focus back on the humanity. So that seems to work well. There'd be a lot of battle against shoulds and shame.
Right.
And then also, I think, honestly, it's really beautiful even when people decide they're going to go their separate ways, particularly if they have kiddos.
Yeah.
To do an intensive or continue the work, because what's the beautiful things we can teach our kids through something that's ostensibly hard?
Right. I think it's also really beautiful for people to have healthy closure and to also, like, if they do have children, you're setting the foundation for what the communication and what the co-parenting relationship can be like moving forward, which I think that would be so supportive for anyone going through divorce. And I'm hearing too, the goal is not to keep people married. The goal is to get two people that know themselves and their experience and can own it and communicate more effectively, and also hold space for who the other person is and their experience. And, you know, if it's somebody that you're going to be connected to for life because you have a child with, what an opportunity to find a way to have a healthy relationship with them, you know?
I just couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I mean, and also the value, we have so few opportunities in our culture to feel fully heard in all of our suffering. And if we're in a marriage and we know it's going to end, and we can respectfully and tenderly and with positive regard tell the other what our experience has been like, and let them receive it without the pull to make an airtight case. Gosh, that's such a gift for each of us to feel heard, and try to emphasize, because the next relationship is probably going to demand feeling heard.
Totally. Yeah, it doesn't go away. We still want that everywhere we go. Yeah. And what a beautiful opportunity to set that foundation for potentially the communication that the children will see or witness, or if they don't see and witness, like they'll still feel the energy of both parents.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a gift to choose to not be with someone, but to choose to value who they are, even if they're just your co-parent. And I'm not just, but like, they're with you forever.
Yeah. And so often, like if I'm in a marriage and I'm scared of divorce, that's likely my younger self who maybe experienced my own parents' messy divorce coming up to say something I don't think kids are naturally scared of dogs. But if I've been scared of dogs, I might impute that fear onto my kiddo.
Right.
But if I can give my fear a cup of tea and let them decide for themselves, then maybe intergenerational fear of dogs would soothe.
Yeah. I love that, because we're all doing that, whether or not we're conscious of it, the things that we've experienced. And I know I have too, moving through different things that I experienced as a child and noticing the ways that I'm placing that a little bit on my children and not wanting to do that. I want them to be themselves. And if they're scared of things, that's okay. If they don't feel safe with things, that's okay. I can support them in that, but I don't want to place these things upon them just because of my experience.
Yeah, I love that. I tell my clients a story. Probably 10 years ago now, I slipped on a piece of cardboard and I almost died.
Wow.
I fell on a metal pole, and my daughter was really young at the time and she happened to be there. Poor baby. But even to this day, if there's a piece of cardboard, I step very gingerly over it. So if you and I we're friends, if I'm over at your house and you have a box on the floor, well, you didn't set it there to hurt me.
Right.
And my reaction to it is more about my previous experience than what's happening. But if I can say, hey, Amanda, I'm just so you know, this happened and I'm really scared, you can be like, it can make sense to you.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think there's beauty in that of like me taking responsibility for why I'm scared. And am I going to tell my kids never to step on cardboard? No.
But you can share your own experience and why it is you're approaching it in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I know that you have an event coming up.
Oh.
Would you like to speak about that at all? What it is, where it's at?
Thank you.
Yeah.
On April 14th, 6 to 7 p.m. at the Boulder Main Library in the Boulder Creek Room, I'm just going to do an hour presentation about why just feeling better isn't enough. And I think
is that what it's called?
I think so. I'd have to look it up, but I think a lot of what you and I just spoke about is, so often therapy is focused on feeling better. And if I have a therapist who uses a directive, maybe psychoed or behavioral approach, and, David, you could be less depressed if you walked or journaled or blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe, but that feels pretty surface level. And what if it doesn't work? What if I walk every day in the forest for 20 minutes like you prescribe and I still feel sadness visiting?
Then what?
Now I'm going to adopt that label. And so I think there's this real problem with some therapy to feel just better, and really inviting us clients, consumers of therapy, to challenge our therapists respectfully to try to find transformational change. And not just feeling better will shorten the length of episodes of therapy and make change durable, not short lasting.
I love that. So April 14th?
April 14th.
Is it free?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You
awesome.
may even get like a treat or something.
Cool.
If you come.
We can put that in the show notes as well. Where would you like people to find you online?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
peoplenotproblems.com is my website, and you can read more about the work I do. And you can schedule. I offer a free 30-minute consultation
Awesome.
just to see if we're a good fit. And really, it's no pressure because 70% of therapy is the alliance. And if it doesn't feel like a good fit, then I can refer you to someone that might be a good fit.
And you know a lot of people.
I know
You know a lot
very
of people.
effective clinicians. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I wish your podcast so well and the
thank
work you
you
do with humans.
Yeah, thank you.